And that means it is time for our manager's report. It is brought to you by San Diego County Credit Union. It's not big bank banking, it's better. And joining us from Baltimore, Maryland, where the Padres begin the final three-game series of their road trip later today, the skipper of the San Diego Padres, Mike Shildt. Mike, good morning to you.
Good morning, gentlemen. How you doing?
We're
great.
good. That was a lot of fun yesterday. And before we get into Dylan Cease's amazing performance and the team behind him, fantastic. I heard you say after the game, and this stunned me, in all your years in baseball, and you know you're what kind of they call a lifer. You've been managing in the minors and the big leagues for what, 2 decades. You've never had your team, throw a no-hitter until yesterday. That's incredible.
It's pretty incredible. Been on the other side of it, unfortunately, but a lot of years in the game, different levels clearly, and yesterday was the first. Came close a ton of times, but yesterday was a special achievement for Dylan, and I was privileged to be a part of it.
It was incredible. I missed the last 2 innings, Skip, and I had to go back and watch them. I knew that he had gotten it. I knew that he had it. It was all over Twitter. Everybody knew it had already been done. I went back and watched the last inning. That first AB had me nauseous. I can't even imagine what you were going through in that first AB of the 9th inning.
Yeah, I mean, at that point we're in, but we got to be mindful of the workload, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But man, Vargas is a tough at bat. I've known Vargas, the kid that took the bat to start the ninth since rookie ball. He's always been a bat-to-ball guy, tough at bat, and a good competitor. And he knew he was going to put together a good at bat, and he did. Threw together a really long at bat on him, and then Dylan made a nasty pitch to get him to kind of check swing that ground ball to bogey. So, and then 3 pitches later it was over.
Obviously, we've seen some really good stretches from Dylan Cease this season, but I don't think it can be repeated enough. The last 3 starts, I mean, historic. What are you seeing? I mean, 2 hits in 22 innings? That's unheard of. Mike, what are you seeing from Dylan Cease? I mean, just anything different? Obviously, he's always got good stuff. What's different about these last 3?
I think it is historic. It's been pretty special to be able to be a part of and watch and see him do his magic. But he's just been super convicted. He's been able to really assert himself and dominate, multiple plus pitches where he wants to go. And him and Campy have had some really clear ideas about how they want to get people out, and he's been able to execute with his plus stuff. It's a good recipe for what we've seen.
And you're talking about conviction here. We got a chance, to interview Dylan Cease. Really thoughtful, soft-spoken guy, has some interesting interests outside of the game of baseball, loves art, loves disc golf. I mean, he's a kind of an everyman type guy and a Renaissance man, if you will. When you talk about conviction, though, how firm was he with you when he said, I want to finish this? How did that convo go?
It was a very healthy conversation, and he was very, very convicted. From my seat, you're bordering, 3 different things really. The ability to have a personal accomplishment, which you want to make sure that these guys have the opportunity to do. Make sure that they're in a position that they're able to perform that day and perform beyond that. So health's a factor, and then you want to make sure you're giving your club the chance to win best chance to win a ball game. And from my seat at 94 pitches after the 7th, in a vacuum that wouldn't have been a big deal for me. We'd have checked in on him. Obviously, we would have gotten the conviction, which I'll get to in a little bit more detail in a second. But it was the hour and 16-minute delay to the start of the game that was clearly abnormal. And if he hadn't gotten hot, that wouldn't have been an issue. But he got hot, and then he actually sat longer because it was a fairly long top of the first before the rain delay. And of course, we came at him with a 3-run double by Kimmy. But that was the biggest factor for me. Like, okay, let's be smart about this. And, man, right when he came off that mound, he was looking like, I'm good to go back. I'm like, I don't think so. And I'm good to go back. And I needed that conviction from him, to be able to talk through it because, it is his career. It's clearly his moment. But in 94 pitches, it's about, okay, are we going to be able to get to the end if we're going to be committed to this? Once we determined and he was convicted about it that we are, you got to go get it, man. Be efficient. And, the 9-pitch eighth clearly helped it. And outside of the long at bat from Vargas, he was convicted and efficient. And what a magnificent performance and great accomplishment. I'm really happy for him.
Talking to Mike Shildt, and I heard you say after the game that it's just the second time you've ever let a pitcher talk you into going back in after you had already made the decision the other way. I wasn't surprised when he said the other one was Adam Wainwright. But I want you to speak on leadership there, because I know there are some people who would say that, waffling or changing your mind is not the sign of a good leader. I kind of think the opposite, like having the ability to change your mind and listen to the guys is actually the most important part of leadership. And how do you kind of view that?
First of all, if you're going to be in any leadership position, you're going to get criticized either way, and you accept that. I personally believe, conviction of leadership is clearly a sign of a good leader, but I don't think it's blind conviction. I've got a personal mantra. I'm really comfortable with what I don't know. I'm really convicted with what I do know, and I also am willing to be open-minded in situations that I'm convicted about to change my mind if things present themselves. And, in real time in a fairly high, stake situation, I've got part of my responsibility in that regard is to be, the guy that looks at the big picture of this thing from an organizational perspective, a long-term perspective of the season, the health of a player. And I factor all those things in with my experiences. And, but then I think you'd be foolish not to be able to have a conversation and listen to people that are participating. And that's really a big part of my leadership style. And people say, it's just, I don't know what people say, quite honestly. I just know it's mostly worked for me. There's nothing that's absolute. Otherwise somebody would have the, holy grail of leadership. But, listen to people and getting their opinions and trusting them. Listening and trusting is, I think, two of the biggest things about leadership, especially the listening part. And then you make an informed decision. And made an informed decision, partnered with Dylan and the group. Ruben was there and said, all right, fine. We're going to go hitter to hitter, and we'll give you a shot at it. But, this isn't going to be like this 130 pitch, we're just chasing it kind of situation. And so everybody was on the same page, and we went out and he did it.
It's such an interesting perspective to hear you talk from your seat about that. I was watching last night, Mike, the Pete Rose documentary. It's on Max right now. It's a 4-parter and certainly very interesting. And, I know you've probably run across Pete in your life, but he was talking about when he was a manager, and he said a manager never thinks he put the wrong pinch hitter in, and a manager never thinks he put the wrong guy in. And I said, man, that's kind of interesting to hear that from Pete Rose when he was managing. And, of course, he was referring to when he was accused of betting on the games that he was managing. And he said a manager will never think he put the wrong guy up to bat or the wrong guy into pitch. I wanted to hear kind of your perspective on that.
I mean, listen, Pete, historic guy. And I don't know what context he was saying that under, whether it was to defend anything, in another topic. But, no, I personally look, I don't have a lot of regrets. I do my homework. I take my shot. It's you make your best. You take your best shot at what you have at the moment. You also sometimes have to have an eye towards, a lot of different things. It may not be the most ideal for a situation for a player, but that player needs to know you have confidence in him. So in a big picture, that's important for the relationship and trust of that player. That in a vacuum, which most everybody that micromanages or second guesses, which I get, I've learned to accept that that's the case. That it's just part of the gig, man. It's a lonely seat where people are going to take their shots, and the reality is that a high percentage, don't really know all the variables or the thought behind it. And, but I can tell you, back to your specific question, I mean, for me and, talking to Hall of Fame managers and other managers and just doing it for, however many years now, 30 years at different levels. Man, it's not that you second guess, but you always review, like, did I do that well?
Sure.
Could I have done that differently? That's just, if I hadn't done that, I would have never got past rookie ball.
No doubt.
I never got to rookie ball. I mean, I've sat there with Tony LaRue, so I don't think he'd have a problem with me saying this out of school, and had, I've had, countless unbelievable conversation with this guy. But I'd be after games when he's managing in the big leagues, and we would win, and he'd be hacked off. And if he thought he missed something, and he's like, and he's right about this, just well, take it how you want to take it. But he's like, I can get called out in the media with a decision that I know I nailed and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And that's completely right. And he is like, and I, same way. You don't lose any sleep over that. It's like a little bit of like, okay, people didn't really understand the context of it, don't really know what I'm dealing with. That's part of the gig. But I've also sat with him, and I've done this to myself too, where you feel like you won a game, or and you feel like you missed something, that eats at you. And I've been at dinner with him. He's like, man, in the third, like this and this. This is more back in the double switch game days, and you really had, shoot, I don't know how many decisions you have to make every day. There's less now, but there's still a lot of freaking decisions that get made that have a lot of different snowballs to them, one way or the other. And if you missed something it's like, man, you beat yourself up over that no one really even paid attention to, or nobody even asked you about in the after the game. And so the thing about it is a high percentage of decisions you make, and they work out, people are like, yeah, it worked out, of course it worked out. And so anyway,
I appreciate that answer too, because I think a lot of times and I do this as a media person. I go, I don't care. We won the game. Like, I'm not going to complain about somebody taking an offer when we won a game and Dylan Cease threw a no-hitter. Let's be happy in the moment. But yeah, I think a good leader, somebody that's reflective, will go back and say probably could have done that a little bit better. So I do appreciate that answer.
Yeah, I don't think anybody that's done anything at any high level to get there and to stay there is not always reflective with a continual growth mindset that also has a little bit of fixed mindset that says, okay, and this is your conviction. Like, I know this works. I've done it. It doesn't always work. It is our best. What you're really accomplishing every night with every decision is best case scenario. Chances are proposition is what this game's about. And you're creating as many positive chances for you as possible relative to the situation you have at hand. And there's levels of those variables that, take place over the course of the 3 to 5 hours before the game that, nobody lives. And then, oh, by the way, you have humans in high stimulated situations.
Yeah.
And, I was talking to A.J. Ellis about this, and it gets really easy to look and sit down like, why ain't he doing that? Why just made that? Why ain't he doing that? You go and do it every single day in front of, the world, basically, because every game's televised. There are 45,000 people in real time every day in highly stimulated environments, with guys throwing 98 to 100, and we can have a tendency to minimize. Why can't he just get that guy over? Why can't he just do this? Why can't he just do that? Well, it's far easier said than done.
Indeed.
And unless you've done it or seen it or managed it, but again, we also recognize, we do work in the public setting, and there are things that come with it, and we can't alibi it. We can just share our thoughts.
I know the only game you care about now is today's game and try to get the next one. Obviously, the bullpen is pretty fresh. It was reported, and you don't have to confirm or deny that Adam Mazur was going to come back and start this game. But imagine at least you feel good about where your team is heading into another tough series against a really good team this weekend.
Yeah, club's playing well, and we're doing the things that require you to win games. We're getting the starting pitching. From all the guys have been tremendous. Our defense has been clean. We've been effective and run the bases intelligently. The offense is witless at bats. Competition's been really good. Played some good clubs. Got another club that we're going to play today in Baltimore and over the weekend that we'll come out and we're going to get our best shot and we'll be ready to go.
And you know what next Friday will be when we talk to you? Talk about everything AJ has done this week because he's always one of the most active GMs around the trade deadline. So imagine there's going to be at least a couple of moves before we talk to you again. So good luck. Good luck against the Dodgers when you get home, and we'll talk to you next Friday.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Appreciate it.
There he is, Mike Shildt, manager of the San Diego Padres. Our manager's report brought to you by San Diego County Credit Union. It's not big bank banking. It is better.